Stone Age for at least the last 4,000 years. Let's talk about that and more fun chimpanzee facts while I sketch this little primate and her baby. So let's just turn the page and get started. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on it's Thursday morning. You know what that means? On Thursday mornings, I like to pull a toy from the toy box, a random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier, and draw it and talk about it. And today's random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier is a chimpanzee. Good morning, Dad. Good morning, Mom, in the chat room. My mom hangs out in the chat room, lets me know if anybody says anything, because I am not somehow skilled enough to draw and talk and read the chat all at the same time. So she lets me know what's going on in the chat and talks to me on my cell phone. So you'll hear her voice now and then as we chat. Good morning, Rick. Got Rick French in the chat. But yeah, on Thursday mornings, we actually do this every day. It's kind of a running joke for me because we actually do this every day at 5:30 in the morning. So you may want to set your notification bell so you don't miss any of them. But today's random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier is a chimpanzee and her baby, riding along on her back like she's a pony. Chimpanzees have been known to organize warfare with neighboring communities. They're called communities. They're not called troops for some reason. They're called communities. You could call them a troop and nobody would argue with you, but they technically refer to them as communities. And Jane Goodall noticed in the early 70s that the Tanzania Gombe National Park, there was a community there that was at war with the neighboring community, and she documented it. And they would ambush each other. They would fight. They would form war parties to go attack each other. And they continued until all of the adult males of one community were dead. So it wasn't just a thing that lasted for a little bit. It was a full on community war. And it's not an isolated event. There was another one documented just recently in 2026 in the Uganda Kimbe National Park. There was another one documented where they were fighting, and who knows what they were fighting over? Territory, women, who knows? All important things worth fighting for, I'm sure, to chimpanzees. Because, people would never fight over anything like that. Hi, Claudia. Rick said Miss Pam is sleeping in this morning. That's good. My mother and I were talking just the other day about whose idea it was to do this every day at 5:30 in the morning. Because we don't ever sleep in. And the problem is, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Chimpanzee communities split into smaller groups. throughout the day for hunting and foraging. And that is significant because they come back together at night, and when they come back together, they come back together in their same hierarchy, where the alpha male and the reigning female still take over their roles, and the subordinates all get in line like they're supposed to. But the alpha males are always under attack by the younger males, because there's always another male trying to vie for the position, because that guy gets all the ladies. And so it's a constant battle for the alpha males, but they do all come back into their roles every day, and it is believed that that is what allowed them to develop their higher brain function. They're considered to have higher intelligence among the primates. And they would have to have higher intelligence among the primates in order to maintain those relationships, to remember where they fit into those relationships. I'm getting confused with my pencil marks here. I have to remember which stray pencil mark belongs to which stray pencil mark, so that I don't move my chimp baby too far back. I'm gonna switch the pen. What you said?
He said he would go flying off.
He would go flying off?
Yes, if you put him too far back.
If I put him too far back, sure enough, she'd buck him off like a bronco. Claudia says it's raining. Rick says it's raining. It's rainy here. It's not. I don't think it's currently raining, but it has been raining for several days. We have I think they said a low pressure system sitting over the top of us, kind of like we did with Hurricane Harvey a few years ago. We have a low pressure system sitting over us, dropping about a quarter to a half inch rain every hour. It has been brutal. Traffic has been a monster because of it. Morning commute has been a load of fun, because when there's an accident on the highway, they move to the community roads. And it's supposed to be this way all next week. Welcome to Houston. You know, I'll tell you, when I moved down here, I firmly believed that it rained every day at 3 o'clock. I absolutely did, because every time I came down here to visit, I was a salesman. And I know that shocks you to think that I might be trying to sell stuff. But I was in sales at the time. And I came down here about 3 times a month, and every time I came down here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, sometime in the afternoon, I joked about it being at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but every afternoon it would rain. And I just believed that was the climate. Like in Hawaii, you know, we joked about how in Hawaii it rained every day at 3 o'clock. You could set your watch by it. That was a running joke for us, and I just kind of believed that that's what was going on here as well.
In Hawaii, you didn't get 2 inches.
Yeah.
It was a nice gentle rain.
It was a nice gentle rain, is right.
rain stops here, nice and toasty.
I tell you what I love about it is that the weather stays in the mid 80s. They talk about the heat in Houston, but the truth of the matter is 9 to 10 months out of the year, we're in the mid to upper 80s, and our lows are mid to low 70s for 9 to 10 months out of the year. 2 or 3 months out of the year, we might get some mid to upper 90s, or we might get some low 40s and 30s. But the whole rest of the year is perpetual springtime. How about I put a face on that little dude? It's a toy, and as much as I want to make that face realistic, it's a toy. I have to remember it's a toy. Do. So yeah, they think that the intelligence is what allows them to split into groups and then come back together. We talked about that the other day with spider monkeys too. Spider monkeys are considered very intelligent among the South American primates, among the New World primates, and they do the same thing. They split into smaller groups and then come back and reform into their standard hierarchies. They have a pretty sophisticated set of vocalizations that they communicate with, a series of grunts and howls, facial expressions, body language and posturing. It's a pretty sophisticated communication system. It's not just, we always associate them just being brute animals, but they actually communicate with each other softly also. That more stuff that Jane Goodall noted, and that other scientists have verified, other anthropologists have studied and verified that they do. This is my favorite part of the process. If I've never told you before, I should tell you that this is my favorite part of the process right here. This is the part that gives the whole thing dimension. Up until now, it's just lines on a page, right? This is the part that gives it dimension and shape. I just love this part. But unlike most, what? I'm sorry, what?
There's an artist I just flashed across my Instagram page.
Yeah.
And that artist was just finished up. She or he does houses, and they're gorgeous houses. And he was, I want to say she because her hands, but she was doing the final touches on it, and she had a little short brush, and she was putting the shadows on it. And she said, "This is what finishes it."
It makes you wonder if she's watching me, because I don't. If you're on Instagram, and you're not on Instagram much, and you're friends with me on Instagram, then the people who are also friends with me will come across you as a suggestion, come up for you as a suggestion. So it's very possible that it's somebody we know.
It's my feed was just full of different artists.
Yeah, oh sure. Oh sure. I bet. But unlike other primates, you know, like the lemurs, they could count the number of different calls that they have. But the combination of the combination of body language and facial and facial expression and posturing that goes with the hoots and howls that the chimpanzees do, they have almost an infinite range like humans do. They're about the size of a human teenager. Four to 5.5 feet tall, somewhere around in that area. 85 to 130 pounds, depending, 70 to 130 pounds, depending on if it's male or female. They're not too terribly huge, and they used to believe that chimpanzees. There used to be the story that chimpanzees were 5 to 10 times as strong as humans, and they are not. The one documentation of that happened was in the 20s, and it turns out that was an anomaly because she was pulling on a rope as she was instructed to do, but she was terrified, and so she had an adrenaline shot, and it was never reproduced. They could never reproduce that amount of strength again. They are stronger than us, but only by about a factor of 1.3, 1.4. And the reason is because they have more fast twitch muscles than we have. They have more dense fast twitch muscles than we have. And that appears to have been a delineation made sometime around 7 to 8 million years ago. It's believed we had a common ancestor 7 to 8 million years ago. And that was the split. One went more towards the slow twitch muscles, which are the endurance muscles, the aerobic and endurance muscles, and that's us. And the other went more towards the fast twitch muscles, which is the brute strength burst of power, and that's the chimpanzees and the bonobos. Let me dry this real quick. Claudia, are you trying to say that you had a downpour? Yeah. My mom and I came up with the same word at the same time. Great minds think alike. Claudia's in the chat. Claudia's in the chat talking about rain, and she had she says they had it's just gray there now, but they had a giant splash, and she couldn't figure out how to say giant splash in English because Claudia's in the Netherlands. And she speaks Dutch and who knows how many other languages. She's brilliant. The fact that she's in the Netherlands speaking English, and she's not translating. She's actually speaking English. I've heard her do it. You know, she's doing way better than me. I barely speak English. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this vermilion. I'm going to go over the whole thing and warm it up. Then we can come back and do the fur. Let's just warm her up. Pick her up off the page. Pick her up off the background. So their DNA is more than 98% the same as ours. And I used to think there were a lot of animals that were that way, but it's not true. Gorillas, for instance, are 80s in the 80s percentile. Whales are in the 80 percentile. Broccoli's in the 60 percentile. But chimpanzees and bonobos are above 98% the same DNA as us, and that's what gives them the impression that we had a common ancestor about 7 to 8 million years ago. The fossil record somewhat supports that, and I say somewhat because everybody's always saying there's no missing link. Everybody always argues if you're arguing against evolution. The biggest argument is that there's no missing link. And when you get to Australopithecus and you get to Lucy, there's only 1 or 2 bones, and you're trying to say that these 1 or 2 bones are a whole new species, when you only have the one. You don't have multiple specimens. You don't have tens of thousands of them. You only have the one specimen. Or maybe two specimens. I'm not going to argue for or against evolution, and I'm not going to argue whether or not Lucy is in that chain of events. I agree with it. The science that I've seen makes sense to me, but I can also see an argument against it. When you only have the one sample, it leaves plenty of room for discussion. And shutting down the discussion is not science. So the argument is that they can also look at the modifications in our mitochondria, and they can count the modifications in the mitochondria, and that coincides with the 7 to 8 million year mark. So it confirms what the paleontologists found, except that it's what they were looking for. And it's easy to confirm something you're already looking for. So there's a strong argument. There's a strong argument the Australopithecus may or may not be the animal they think it is, but it's a pretty good bet that it's at least in the family. But I'm certainly not going to be the guy that pounds the table and says this is a fact and you have to agree with me, or you're not getting funded. All right, let me dry this real quick. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're right on time. Look at me go. Look at me go. Let me dry this real quick and then we can ink it. That shared DNA makes them susceptible to most of our diseases. There's there's at least 190 diseases that they know that chimpanzees are susceptible to, that humans also carry. And that includes Ebola. They had an outbreak of Ebola, and several communities died from their outbreak of Ebola. They had an outbreak of respiratory. People have given chimpanzees a cold, and just like with the Aztecs and the Native Americans, the cold was enough to decimate the community because they didn't have the immunity from the standard diseases. Good morning, Asian duck shooter. But that makes them, that makes it difficult to study them because they're susceptible to all of the same diseases. And so when we go out amongst their communities, when we go out amongst the cattle or lion communities in Africa, we don't run the risk of giving them the flu and killing them off, or at least we don't think so. But we do have that possibility with chimpanzees and other primates, and that's well documented. They are in there. I mentioned that they're in their own Stone Age. They have been in a Stone Age for at least 4,000 years. They started using there's I don't know if you'd call it archaeological evidence or if you'd call it paleontological evidence, but there's evidence of tool usage where they would shape rocks, not just pick up a rock and use it, but shape the rock to use it as a nutcracker or a scraper. A nutcracker, which can also be used as a hammer, but they would find the nuts and they would use the rocks, but they would shape the rock to have it just right so they could delicately crack the nut. If you take a big blunt rock and you smash it onto a nut, the nut scatters and then you're picking up little pieces. But if you shape the rock into a little hard edge, you can tap the nut and the nut just splits open, right? Well, they've discovered that chimpanzees started doing that about 4,000 years ago, and also scrapers. They were shaping rocks into scrapers, and they're still doing it. And they're teaching their children to do it. They're teaching their offspring to do it, and that is unique among the other primates as well. Today is the 4th of May of 2026. So who knows, man? In about 2,000 years or so after we've blown the planet up and the rocket ship comes back to the Earth and the planet's been taken over by apes. I mean, it could already be started. Get your hands off of me, you filthy ape. All right, so there is my chimpanzee compared to the drawing. Let's see it compared to the photograph. I have to leave the dam jokes to yesterday when we drew the Hoover Dam. I can't use the dam jokes today. They're hard to count. They're estimated somewhere between 170,000 and 300,000. They're hard to count. But the interesting thing is that they were between 170,000 and 300,000 in the 90s, and they're still 170,000 to 300,000. They know they took a dip in the 2000s due to habitat loss and bushmeat hunting. So there's my chimpanzee compared to my perspective.
Very nice.
They know they took a dip due to habitat loss and bushmeat hunting and the like, and poaching. But ecotourism is bringing them back. And I'm a big fan of ecotourism. People pay to go see wildlife, and that encourages the local communities to keep the wildlife safe. I'm a big fan. Yeah, we count the chimpanzees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I counted that one twice. Would you stand still? All right. So what are we doing tomorrow? Let's see what tomorrow is. Who knows? Tomorrow, oh, the mystery, the excitement, the suspense, of what could it be? Oh, well, this will be fun. It is a velociraptor claw in a fossil. So tomorrow we're going to do a velociraptor fossil. We'll talk about how these are found in I believe it's the Gobi Desert, and how China and Mongolia and all of those countries over there have made it illegal to export fossils without their permission. You can't. The fossil trade is highly regulated. The U.S. has even been involved in some high-profile repatriation cases. So we'll talk about that and more fun Velociraptor fossil facts tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. Texas time. So you're going to want to set your notification bell so you don't miss that. But guys, thank you so much for joining me. I do look forward to this every day when I get to this suspense. I do look forward to this every day when I get to visit with my arties, with my besties. I like to art with my besties every day. Claudia, Rick, Pamela's sleeping, so everybody be quiet. Mom, Dad, Asian.
Oh, Pamela's here.
Oh, did Pamela come in?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it. I'm sorry. I should have said hi. I saw Rick say that Pamela was sleeping.
Yeah, she snuck in.
Okay. Well, she's very sneaky. I underestimated her sneakiness. But Pamela and everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Asian Duck Shooter, thank you guys so much. Claudia, look out for the lightning. She says it's lightning where she is there. So you guys be careful in the rain. It's raining here as well. And be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. We dance. What did you say, Mom? Tonight. Oh, yes. Tonight is Thursday night. On Thursday nights, we do a live show. We don't teach lessons. We just art and talk about life in general. And tonight, I'm going to do some vintage glass. We found my mead making equipment. We're going through the house and organizing, which we do every year. When my wife gets out of school, she starts organizing the house again. And so we found my mead making equipment, and then I started looking for jars to put mead into, and I found a whole bunch of vintage glass that I want to draw. So we're going to do that tonight at 7 p.m. Texas time. So if you're up, Claudia, come back and see us tonight. But we dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because that's how I know that the lag is caught up to the stream and I won't get cut off mid-sentence. It gives everybody a chance to say hello and goodbye to each other. It gives you a chance to click the clicky thingies this way if you're on the horizontal, or this way if you're on the vertical. But the most important thing is that I don't get cut off mid-sentence.